What's up? I am going to share with you a relationship insight that I had that is going to blow your mind. It's not an overpromise and it will not be underdelivered because I've been deep in this world of relating, studying human connection for a long time, 27 years, something like that. But let's be honest, we're all studying it our whole lives because that's ultimately the most important skill you can build in your lifetime. So why fuck around? You need to know how to relate. Now, look, I've been really focused on high performing couples. Do they get to the next level? And how do couples in general get to the next level? And in order to get to the next level, you have to move out of wound-based relating. And that means if you're operating from a wound from childhood that says no one ever chooses me, you're going to still be operating from protecting that wound and trying to make it so someone finally chooses you. So eventually you have to move out of relating from your wounds and relating from wholeness. And so instead of chasing someone to choose you, you choose yourself. And then now you take the choice away from them. And now you can just be in love with them and grow with them. Now, it sounds a lot simpler than it is because to finally choose yourself will likely mean having to confront the grief that you have from your childhood, that you weren't chosen, etc. So it's simple in terms of the structural way of doing it, but to actually do something different to your nervous system feels dangerous, right? Even if doing something different means choosing healthy relating. Now, I've got this board here because I'm going to write some stuff because I found a shadow pattern in relationships. Now, look, in all relationships, one person is generally more prone to anxiety when there's distance, insecurity, and the other person is more prone to avoidance when there's relational insecurity. This is true of all relationship setups, even secure people, when it's how we orient to the distance or the insecurity or the lack of distance that makes us secure, right? So it's like, what would a secure person do in this situation? If you do that thing, you will eventually become secure, right? And so it's just like if you don't love yourself, if you ask yourself in each second, if I loved me, what would I do? And you make that choice, you'll love yourself. It's that simple. But again, as I'm saying, the challenge is to be different than you were because familiarity is seen as safe to the nervous system, even if it sucks, even if familiarity is dating unavailable people, douche canoes, whatever it is. Okay, so I started to see that a deeper shadow behavior. So anxiety and avoidance both have shadow behaviors. Let me show. So in anxious attachment, you got the person always running towards, right? So they're always closing down the space in the relationship, and they're usually hypervigilant. This reflection, by the way, is the beautiful sun and trees. But there's this hypervigilance generally to there being too much space. And an avoidant person tends to orient away from the relationship. So in their movement away from the relationship, they feel the closing down of space and distance. So to them, closeness is dangerous. To them, distance is dangerous. Okay. So here's what occurs at the shadow part of anxiety and avoidance. This would be true in codependency, right? Because they're all just different ways of systemizing relationships, how people orient to each other. And what we do when we hear and learn about anxious attachment or avoidant attachment is we go, oh my gosh, that cluster of behaviors is very similar to what I do. Okay, amazing. That makes sense. So now we have like a system that describes what we do, and then we can learn our way out of that thing. In the shadow side of this, the shadow side of the anxious person is collapsing. So they'll collapse. That's what I mean by that is they're more willing to compromise their own needs for the relationship. And in an avoidance, they're more willing to isolate. So what happens when the relationship is stressed, or there's stress in the relationship or in one of the people even, is they'll collapse and they'll orient the relationship. That's what I mean, is their self will disappear. That's what the collapsing is. So what's important to them, what they need, what they want, they'll put to the side for the relationship. Now, look, that can be a good thing, of course, because relationships require compromise and the experience of being collectively and collaboratively focused. But when it's at the cost of yourself, it's contrived. This one, when there's stress and all that stuff coming up, they tend to become an island. So they actually separate themselves from the relationship. And so this just causes more stress for this person and more collapsing. So that goes up, which makes this person isolate more. So what I see in even very high functioning couples, but this is true of all couples, and I just say that because like people who've really done a lot of relational work, they'll hit the upper limit of this relationship pattern because something needs to happen. And let me explain what that is. So what needs to happen is that there needs to be an ownership of the shadow behavior that's happening in here. it doesn't matter who goes first, but what matters is that we own that we're willing and we are doing these things in order to try to get the other person to do something, stay, be different, but to manage our own stress. So the shadow side of the anxious person, I'll just put avoidant up here for clarity. So the shadow side of the anxious person is that they are willing to be manipulative by prioritizing the relationship. Again, notice the delineation I'm saying. I'm not saying making the relationship important isn't a key behavior. It's just that when it's at the cost of yourself. So it becomes a shadow behavior when you start to abandon and leave yourself. So you have to own that you are willing to the collapse. So you have to own that you're willing to manipulate, and you're doing that by putting this person's needs first. And look, their needs can be in the top, but they shouldn't be more important than yours, and they shouldn't be less important than yours. But if putting their needs first means yours come second, that's self-abandonment, and that's manipulation. Now, again, the origins of why you do that are beautiful. They're because you learned that in a family system where your needs couldn't be prioritized, there wasn't space for them, etc. So we have compassion for what shapes this, but it's still a shadow behavior. In the avoidance side, this is really fascinating. They have to own that they are willing to exploit and manipulate the collapsing. They are willing to push, manipulate, pardon my writing and my stick people, they're willing to manipulate and to extract from this person who is willing to compromise their own needs for the relationship. So they have to own that they know how to flex on this person. They know how to use guilt. They know how to use shame. They know how to do these things. That arrow is horrible. They know how to do these things in order to get this person to collapse. Now, if we're playing the martyr and we're really playing a lot of the conversation that happens online about anxious attachment, is this person goes, well, that's not fair. They're manipulative. Look, I have compassion for it, but you can hear it from my voice. I'm being a bit cynical because the martyr part of this is all part of the shadow, because they go, that's not fair. You're willing to manipulate me. Instead, you go, I will no longer be manipulated. I will no longer manipulate because I let you do that. I let you do that. But you have to own the shadow part of you that knows you will exploit me, that knows you'll take advantage of that. And look, like what I've noticed with couples I've been working with or people I've been working with who are healing codependency, healing people pleasing, or healing avoidance, is that they have to own the one cell in their body that does that. They have to actually bring out into the exposure the truth that they are willing to do that and they know they're doing that. That's what reveals the survival strategy. So when two couples finally take a stand, one person says, I'm no longer interested in this dynamic. Here's my part in the dynamic. You can't go, well, you do this. You have to say, own your part first, then point out their part, discuss their part, and then get ownership, ask for ownership. In order for us to move forward to the next level relationally, we have to lay this at the altar of the old relationship. The old relationship has to die and a new one will be born. But we have to name this pattern. And this pattern, I would say, is at the forefront of almost every relationship till you get into the next level. I find Kai and I moving through this pattern too, where we're willing to own the most brilliant unconscious, subconscious parts that are like so good at hiding in the ether, right? Because they don't want to be exposed. So when you expose them, own them, and you say, I'm done with this contract, I'm done with this pattern, let's move forward and create something more intentionally, and let's call out when this happens, right? And what that does is it says to the relationship, like, we're committed to something different. Now, here's the beautiful part. When you make the invitation, the other person gets to decide if they want to accept the invitation. We have to be able to own the most shameful parts of ourselves so that we can relate from a liberated place. And often the shame that comes forward from this, because of course it's going to elicit shame. You're like, wait, I'm actually using this to manipulate? Yeah. And what you then say to each other when each other owns it is you say, I'm so sorry that that's how you had to learn to get your needs met and to create safety. I'm really sorry that in order to be loved and feel safe in a relationship, you had to learn to manipulate people, and you can apply that to either side of that dating process, of that relating process and relating technique. So with all that said, this is something that's been really on my mind that I need to share with you. I would love to hear in your comments what it brings up, and I can't wait to hear how it changes your relationship. Send it to all the people you know who are in couples that are just struggling to move through something. They're fighting about the same BS. And if you're in that process, apply this, listen to this together. It will completely change your relationships. Now, here's the most beautiful part. You don't have to be in a relationship for this to change your life. It will change your life because you'll be letting go of the martyr in you. You'll be letting go of the manipulator in you, and you'll be able to live a more aligned life in terms of creating meaning and purpose and pursuing what you truly desire, because you feel safe to be more seen and you trust yourself in relationship to communicate from an authentic and real place that's not contrived and manipulative. So with all that said, hit the likes button, the subscribe button. Please share this video. Much love. I can't wait to see you in the next one.